The definition of vulnerable populations are people who are at risk for disparate healthcare access and outcomes because of economic, cultural, ethnic, or health characteristics. Members of vulnerable populations often have health conditions that are exacerbated by unnecessarily inadequate healthcare. Also, vulnerable populations include patients who are racial or ethnic minorities, children, elderly, socioeconomically disadvantaged, underinsured, or those with certain medical conditions. The complete definition of elderly people is defined as to be older than middle age, typically around the age of 65 or older. The elderly is a vulnerable population we will be discussing today, specifically elder abuse. Elderly abuse can be broken into different parts: neglect, abusive behaviors, and financial abuse. The first part of elder abuse being discussed is neglect. Neglect consists the withholding of necessary food, clothing, and medical care to meet the physical and mental needs of an elderly person. There are two types of neglect: intentional and unintentional. Intentional neglect occurs when a caregiver deliberately fails to fulfill caretaking responsibility, causing harm to the elderly person. Unintentional neglect may stem from either ignorance or from the genuine inability to provide care.
A general term for various behaviors, which may be aggressive, coercive, or controlling, destructive, harassing, intimidating, isolating, or threatening that a batterer or abuser may use to control a domestic partner, child, or other victim. These are the general terms of abusive behaviors. Elderly people tend to be abused more often, abused for long periods of time, and are less likely to access the justice system. These people are more likely to be abused by a caregiver or someone they know, and many are repeatedly abused by the same person. Elderly people are often isolated and dependent on a small circle of friends and caregivers for critical support, including assistance with basic needs and physical needs. In some cases, these caregivers are abusers, which poses a difficult decision for the victim, who is required to choose between the potential for continuing abuse and an uncertain future. Abusive behavior is broken into several different parts: physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and financial abuse.
There are many actions that are considered physical abuse. Some are pushing, striking or causing bodily injury, force feeding or improper use of physical restraints, hitting, striking, beating, pushing, shaking, pinching, kicking, slapping, and burning. Force feeding, excessive use of physical restraints or drugs, and if used inappropriately, and holding someone against their will, referred to as false arrest, are all considered physical abuse. Senior citizens often are frail and easily injured. Physical abuse may include seemingly minor acts of physical contact. If done with intent to harm or control against the individual's will, would be considered physical abuse.
Psychological abuse includes intimidation, humiliation, threats, insults, harassment, and treating senior citizens like children. Predators may perceive a person with disabilities as weak, vulnerable, or less likely to report abuse, making them an easy target. Some ways a predator may abuse an elderly person is withholding medication, not allowing them to see a doctor, mixing medications in an unprescribed manner, giving too much medication to cause addiction or overdose, or even threatening to harm or harms their service animal. An abuser may also tell a person that they deserve their abuse because of their age or illness. Giving an elderly person the silent treatment or isolating an older person from family and friends are nonverbal forms of emotional and psychological abuse. Psychological abuse is commonly referred to as emotional abuse due to the emotional impact it causes on a human being.
Sexual abuse is any sexual contact with an elderly person who is incapable of giving consent or who is too confused to fully understand what is happening is also considered sexual abuse. Sexual abuse includes unwanted touching, sexually explicit photographing, forced nudity, and all types of sexual assault, such as battery, such as rape, and molestation. Financial abuse can appear in many forms and is most commonly inflicted by family and caregivers. Deceiving an elderly person of paperwork that they're signing is a common form of financial abuse. Typically, a person would tell an elderly person that they're signing a simple paper when in reality it could be a change in their wills. Some caregivers will come up with extra expenses to try and extort more money from their elderly clients. Financial abuse cases are also highly unreported, where only 1 in 44 cases are reported on average.
On the next slide, we will be showing a video that is perfect evidence of elder abuse in a nursing home. This video was found on YouTube but was originally posted on Daily Mail after the family of the gentleman wanted the public to know what was happening to him.
I know it's an indignity issue, but the thing is, this mother don't stay up long enough for it to be an indignity issue for his ass. She dead. Every morning. My thing is be on your own shit. You don't do shit all goddamn day. Come down here and monitor your motherfucking room. Get your ass up here. I know how you doing. I used to control people like that. Shut up. Don't make no noise, Union, please. She gonna get you right back up. Lay down. Lay down. Yeah, I put you down. Good job. Hey, everything is all gone. Stop. 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 Enough. Come on, Lila. Enough. Enough. Look at your stupid ass. Your ass up.
Family abuse is most frequently reported as verbal, financial, or physical mistreatment. In a study of 4,156 older adults, family members were most commonly the predators of financial exploitation of older adults, followed by friends and neighbors, followed by home care aides. These are all the reasons why elderly people are a vulnerable population.